So for example 1 of the Unit 12 More About Regression notes, we have an example in which a teacher is trying to decide whether seat location matters. If do students sitting closer to the front of the classroom score higher than students at the back of the classroom? And to answer this question, the teacher essentially took a unit of study and at the beginning randomly assigned students to seats, and at the end of the unit measured their test scores. And they were looking for, do students sitting closer to the front of the classroom, which would be row 1, score higher than students sitting toward the back of the classroom, or row 2. And one of the ways to do this is to test whether this slope of negative 1.22 could have happened by chance, or do we think that this is actually a cause and effect relationship due to that random assignment of students to rows? So one way to check that is to see, where does this sample statistic, negative 1.12, fall in a distribution, a random distribution, of all of these test scores just randomly assigned to different rows? We call this a randomization distribution, which is very similar to a sampling distribution. Instead of having you guys do these with note cards, as you can see on the completed copy of the guided notes, I've created an Excel file so you can easily and very quickly re-randomize and get at least 30 data values to put on the board for your class dotplot. So what we have is the file, does seat location matter? And this is going to be on Power School Learning. I'm going to open it up. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and put the data in. So you can see all the exam scores for row 1, row 2, row 3, all the way to row 7. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a scatter plot. And so to create a scatter plot, I need to highlight rows A and B, and then I need to go Insert, Chart, Line, not Line, XY Scatter. Okay. Now that I have this, I need to clean it up, and then I need to put the least squares regression line on there. So I'm going to call this row versus exam score. Row versus exam score. And then I'm going to label each of my axes. So I can go over here to add chart element, and then I can go to axes. Let's do the titles. So let's go ahead and label this horizontal axis row, and go back to add chart element, axis title vertical. We're going to call it exam score. Now that I have those labeled, I might want to look at the scale and make sure that it looks appropriate. And I'm noticing the Y scale, there's a lot of empty space between 0 and 60, or even 0 and 40. So I'm going to go to axes, more axes options. Okay. I look at the x-axis, it looks good for row. I look at the y-axis and I see all that empty space from 0 to 40 or 0 to 60. So I'm going to change the minimum value, let's say to 40. Okay. Okay. Now my data is more in the middle of the graph. I'm leaving a little space at the bottom. Maybe I should leave a little more space at the top. Let me go up to 140. Okay. Because what we're going to do is we're going to randomize those scores to each of the rows. So in order to do that, I'm going to say, I'm going to call a third column random list. And basically, we're going to, this is something that was very difficult to do in Fathom because each of the rows in like row 2, row 3, row 4 are tied together. Whereas Excel, I can randomize only exam score, and that will essentially randomize them to different rows in the classroom. So we do this with a random function, just rand, open parentheses, close parentheses. That didn't do anything because I need to say equals, because this is a function for that cell. And there's a random number. And really what we're going to do is we're going to put a random number next to each of the exam scores. So I need to scroll all the way down to my 30th exam score, my 30th student. Okay. And then this is a kind of novel trick. In order to randomize the exam score, we're going to take columns B and C, and we're going to sort them by this random list, and that's going to randomize them, whereas the rows are just going to stay row 1, row 2, row 3, all the way to row 7. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go to, let's go to Data, Sort, and I want to sort by random list. Okay. And I want to do smallest to largest so that the random list title stays at the top. And I say OK. And what just happened is I sorted by the random list, and it also re-randomized my exam scores so I could find out what if I randomly assign these exam scores to different rows. You can see the rows did not change. Now, I need to put, I need to find out, okay, randomly, if I did this, what is the relationship between row and exam score? And the way we do that is with the least squares regression line. So I'm going to click on my chart, okay, basically unhighlight. I had some things selected, unselect them, select the chart. I need to go to chart design, add chart element, and it calls the least squares regression line a trend line, and that's a linear least squares regression line. There it is. It doesn't look like there's very much relationship there because it's horizontal. Let's pull this in, and let's go ahead and go back to my add chart element, trend line, more trend line options. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose, I need to scroll to the bottom of this format trend line, and I need to display the equation on the chart. And it shows up really tiny here in the middle. I'm going to move it to where I can see it, double click it, go home, make it big, maybe size 18. Now I can see it. And I can see what's the sample slope. Okay, of this randomization distribution. And I can see it is negative 0.18777. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat this process. So I'm going to take my random list. Okay, and if I just scroll down, it's going to apply that formula again to all these cells. You'll notice it re-randomized them all. And then I need to take rows B and C, sort them by their random values. So basically I'm randomly assigning each exam score back to each row. Let's see, I need to sort. So I go to data, sort, random list. I'm sorting by the random list, yes, because I want to randomize them. And there they go. And you can see my trend line just changed, but not a whole lot. Okay. That does look like my old trend line. So what I might want to do is just make sure, going to chart design, trend line, more trend line options. Let's make sure that this equation is displayed on the chart, and yes, it's a different one. I'm going to make it big so I can see it. Okay, there it is. And you can see I got a very different slope, 2.57. Let's just go to the hundredths place on these. So 0.19, I think is what that one was, 2.57. And I want each group to repeat this process about 5 times so that we can get at least 30 data points on the board. If everyone's present, that would be 7 pairs times 5 sample slope. So we should get about 35 data points on the board, which should give us a pretty good randomization distribution. I'll do it one more time. So I need to re-randomize. Okay. I need to randomly assign those exam scores based on these random numbers to rows. So I need to go to data, sort. It's already set up, sorting randomly from largest to smallest. There they go. That's the same least squares regression line from before. I want a new one. So I need to go to chart design, add chart element, trend line, linear, nope. More trend line options. Go to the bottom, add equation on the chart, move it to where I can see it, make it big enough to where I can read it, and record the slope. And you're going to do this 5 times. Okay. And then once you get these sample slopes, you're going to plot them on the class dotplot, and you're going to see you're looking to answer the question. I'm going to merge all these cells, type in the question we want to answer, and merge. Okay. How extreme is the sample statistic, which is sample slope, of negative 1.12, as you can see on the notes. Okay. And how likely could it have happened purely by chance? And then I'm going to make sure we can see this. Format cell, and I want to wrap the text. Not sure that's going to do it for me. I'm looking for wrap text. Format. Cells. Okay. Alignment. Wrap it. And that's all.